Spotify has had kind of a bad time recently, and a bunch of people have been canceling their subscriptions, and some artists have been pulling their music from the platform, actually. We don't want our music contributing or benefiting, led by someone backing Tools of War here, boycotting the platform. Their new record will not be on Spotify. Off of Garbage Hole Armageddon Portal Spotify. Pretty harsh. In this video, we're going to answer the question, should artists pull their music from Spotify as a result? But first, we're going to talk about some artists that have been and the reasons for pulling their music. First of all, you might have remembered recently I talked about that AI band that I'm not going to mention their name anymore because I don't want to give them more credit, that had over 1 million monthly listeners just by uploading the music to the platform. And there may have been some fake streams, there may have been a bunch of playlisting, but moral of the story, AI music is allowed and it's being recommended by the Spotify algorithm. It's not being recommended in editorials, but their algorithmic playlists are pushing it out, just like human-made music, and artists don't like that for obvious reasons. Second, there's always the perpetual thing about artists wanting more money from Spotify. That really applies to all streaming platforms, and really the AI thing does too. Every streaming platform now is recommending AI music just like human music, except for Deezer. But also Spotify pays a lot less than a lot of their competitors, like Apple Music. They pay about double what Spotify does. YouTube Music pays about triple. Deezer is pretty similar to Spotify. Maybe it's slightly more now. Tidal pays a lot more, Amazon pays a lot more, etc. But there's platforms that pay less. Like regular YouTube actually pays less than Spotify. But Spotify is such a big platform and users that artists want them to just pay more because there's such a big chunk of their earnings on a proportional basis. They make more from the platform, but it's less per stream than a lot of the other platforms that they're on. The big one lately, though, is that the CEO, Daniel Ek of Spotify, made a massive investment, $700 million in total, I think, between his two investments. With his own money, he invested his own money into this AI defense company. So they're a company that makes defense products, which you can look it up on your own. I'm not going to go through the detail of it, but if I recall, they make drones that have explosives mounted to them, and they're defense weapons, right? They're weapons. They're for war, right? And artists typically are very against war for various reasons. He invested in this company, and people feel like he's using, essentially, it's almost like Spotify is paying for it. So it's almost like the money that artists are making them is being used to fund war weapons. And I'm not going to get into the ethics of that at all, but that's been the sentiment. And so looking at how some of these artists have been talking about this article, I Googled it just to get some list, but the bands that have pulled their music, there's this band Deer Hoof. They said Daniel Ek uses $700 million of his Spotify fortune to become chairman of the AI Battletech company. We don't want our music killing people. We don't want our success being tied to AI Battletech. I talked about this in my brand new podcast. We have a brand new podcast called My 0.4 Cents. I'll put a graphic of it here. It's going to be a link in the description. I'll put a link right here. You can click on it to go check it out. It's on YouTube. It's on podcast platforms. But the kicker is, it's a podcast with myself, Jesse Cannon, Matt Bacon, and Dustin Boyd. So it's super fun. It's early on. Go check it out. Go subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on social media. It's been a blast so far, and we've been stoked at the reactions. That's my plug for the video. Not a sponsor. So King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who in that episode actually pronounce wrong many times, or say it wrong, because I've never heard of any of these bands. Some of these bands are big. King Gizzard has over 1 million monthly listeners, or had. Some of the other ones are smaller, but they're very respected bands in the space. So I'm kind of poking fun a little bit at them. But these guys said, hello fans, a PSA to be aware. Spotify CEO Daniel Ek invested millions in his AI military drone technology. We just removed our music from the platform. This artist, Ziu. We are currently working to take all of our music off of Garbage Hole Armageddon Portal Spotify. So pretty harsh. It is taking longer than we hoped due to procedural complications. Due to statement, Kalahari Oyster Cult label. We don't want our music contributing or benefiting, led by someone backing Tools of War, surveillance, and violence, etc. Right? So a lot of these people in this new wave of people pulling has been for the defense company investments. And so that's the current stage. Now, a lot of artists are thinking should they pull their music from the platform? And if it kills you with your morals and your beliefs, do you, right? You do you. But from a business perspective and a marketing perspective, Spotify is by far the biggest streaming platform in the world right now. It's bigger than the next few combined in terms of users. I think the last I checked, they had like 700 million or 650 million users, monthly active users, right? Not even just dead users, like monthly active users. And if I recall, like 400 million of them or 300 million of them are paying customers. So they have a huge audience. It's way bigger than Apple. It's bigger than YouTube Music as well. So pulling your music from the most active platform in the world is just a bad idea, right? It's going to hurt your growth. In my opinion, it's not up to the artists on the platforms to pull their music. It's really up to the users who use the platform. They need to cancel their subscription. From Spotify's perspective, the artists are not the customers, right? The artists are the product. I think it hurts them a lot more if the customers are pulling than if the artists pull, especially as an indie artist. If you're watching this and you have strong beliefs about the various things Spotify has done that you don't like, and you have 1 million, 5 million, 10 million monthly listeners, you pulling your music actually does something, although I would argue 1 million monthly listeners isn't really going to do anything to Spotify just with the scale they operate at. If you're watching this and you're like literally 10 million monthly listeners, that's a pretty big chunk, right? And if you make these massive statements and you pull your music and you're directing all your fans to Apple Music, and a lot of your fans are then pulling their subscriptions and driving to Apple, that might do something. But if you're watching this and you're like, I have 100,000 monthly listeners, I have 10,000 monthly listeners, I have 1,000 monthly listeners, Spotify doesn't care if you pull your music. In fact, they might prefer you pull your music because now they don't have to pay to host your music, which basically to them, anyone with a small enough audience, they're not driving people to the platform. They're just kind of taking up space. Again, if it's really killing you with your beliefs, do what you want to do. But from like a marketing business perspective, it's a horrible idea to pull your platform from the largest platform for people to consume your music. Because then what happens with your fans is, let's say you find a potential fan and they like what they're seeing in your ad, with your social media content, with whatever you're doing, your tour, and they look you up, they're a Spotify customer and they look you up, and you're not there. They're not going to cancel their Spotify subscription and subscribe to Apple Music because of you. They're not even a fan of you yet. So really, one, what you've done is you've hurt yourself, and two, you've punished your fans. A lot of your fans just simply aren't going to jump ship. But the ones that do, if they're jumping ship for just you, it's kind of punishing them. So that's my take on it. I'm not a fan of a lot of these moves that Spotify has made either. But in my opinion, there is some nuance to it, right? He's not taking money from Spotify and funding it. He sold ownership of the company to the stock market and then used his own money to do it. Does that indirectly mean that Spotify's doing it? I would argue no, but I understand the hatred of that, right? Just as someone who doesn't like war. Hope that gives some perspective to this overall conversation. If you want to see the discussion over at the My Point 4 Cents podcast, check that out right here on YouTube, but there'll be links down below for other platforms. Let me know in the comments what you think and what you're doing with your music. But thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.